into Captain America reviews? Brave New World?
Let's do it.
It's a
Waiting
brave new world.
a while now to talk about this. I feel, we saw it, what, Thursday night, so we've let it marinate 48 hours now at this point. I'm assuming both of you have read like reviews and what other people have said, and what Reddit's saying or what the casual's saying versus the hardcore.
Yeah,
But I mean, what do y'all think? Was it a good movie, or was it as bad as all the critics are saying? I think on Rotten Tomato right now it's sitting at like a 51. It's
it's
I've
pretty
seen
low.
51.
people
Yeah.
hating. I
Yeah,
think
it's
it's a
51.
very,
I think
And
only
I think,
Eternals and the Marvels were lower in terms of their tomato score, and then the popcorn meter was actually better than the first Avenger.
okay. Oh,
which I think it's better than First Avenger for sure. I
yeah, I
like
think it's
First
better than the
Avenger.
first Avengers. And I mean, for me, I thought it was just like a solid film. Like, um, a good setup film in terms of that. But I feel like the film was kind of divided into two pieces too. Like carryover from Falcon and Winter Soldier versus all of the stuff that tied into the Hulk 2008.
Hmm.
And it was like a side and a B side type of movie with Captain
Hmm.
America, with like Anthony Mackie's Captain America kind of just being like the vessel that takes you through both of those stories. Um, and I enjoyed that part about it, honestly. I thought Harrison Ford was the one of the bright points as Ross,
Hmm.
and I like the action within the movie. I actually did like. I like the way that Falcon fights.
Yeah, I agree.
Uh, as Captain America with the shield, and they definitely gave us the shield moments of him getting these like Marvel rival combos off, and
Hmm.
still incorporating his wings, making him unique to Steve Rogers. Lots of mentions of Wakanda in a Black Captain America film. I support that anytime. And Latino Falcon, my favorite surprise in the movie, and definitely want to see more of that character or see how that progresses too.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
Joaquin is great. Uh, we were just talking about it earlier, how it's similar to some of the other relationships that, you know, Tony may have had with Peter or Tony may have had with Rhodey, and you can see those similarities with like Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson, and now Sam Wilson with, Joaquin. And I think he's kind of the lighthearted kind of character in the movie, but not really the comic relief too much. It's a pretty serious movie if you think about it. Like, there's not really that many jokes. All the jokes are kind of, they're there and they're all
Contain.
natural. There's not too many forced. It's not Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
It's not Deadpool. You're not going to be laughing. And there's some very serious moments. I feel like that moment where Isaiah gets locked up, in DC,
Mm-hmm.
like, that I felt like I was on the verge of tears there. Like I can't believe this man going back, after this man's been experimented on and he didn't even want to go, and now all these events are happening and Captain America has to deal with it. Do we feel like Anthony Mackie feels like Captain America, just like Chris Evans does? Obviously, they're not Steve Rogers, but at least me personally, I felt like he did a good job. He embodies this idea that, he's like a good person. He's not just like a good soldier, but he's a good person and he's willing to, always fight for the little man.
Yeah, I like how the movie had him a little bit like wrestling with imposter syndrome when it came to like replacing Cap, Steve Rogers, and saying that, Steve, I should have took the super soldier serum, and like that line was pretty funny. But it was also like referring to the what he was battling throughout the film in terms of like his mentality of like, damn, am I worthy of this mantle? And again, I
Hmm.
think that he does it in his own ways, and that's the part where um it didn't feel like he was trying to be a carbon copy of Steve Rogers. It felt like he was just wrestling with how to protect America in that way and also not disgrace the mantle. I feel like was more of like the pressure that he was feeling, not that he had to be Steve, but man, the pressure and weight that comes with not and the conversation he had with Joaquin where he was like, "Fuck, I made a mistake," and he was like, "Yeah, you don't make those." Saying that to Anthony Mackie, and he understood like that. Yeah, that kind of comes with the pressure, and I used to watch Steve do that all the time, and so I know that
Hmm.
I can't fuck up.
No, definitely. I really enjoyed the movie personally. I liked a lot of the connections back to Falcon and Winter Soldier. Even for those who didn't see it, I felt the film did a really good job in kind of tying in some of the characterization that we saw in that with both Joaquin and Sam, and even for a bright little second, little cameo of Bucky that we got in the film. And we kind of see where he's at. Like he's about to become a congressman, which is wild in itself. Like this dude is known as the Winter Soldier. You know, he was a victim and all of that. The fact that they could let someone, with a past like that, get up to that level again goes to show like the openness that that world has. And I think that's kind of the theme of the movie that I really liked was, being open to change. I do think people don't talk about the MCU films in a thematic way all the time, but I feel like a lot of the movies have strong themes that really help elevate the film, even if it's not, the upper echelon of the MCU, that top 10, that S tier level. But this was a very enjoyable film. I loved I loved the fight between Sam and Red Hulk. I thought it went very, very well. To your point, he's not a carbon copy of Steve whatsoever. He's Falcon with a shield that now is Captain America. And so you see how he incorporates, his traditional style while adding in that style that we saw him pick up in the Falcon and Winter Soldier series. So it's nice to kind of see where how he's developed since that time, and holding the mantle. And I read something earlier that I really resonated with, and how like Sam is truly the people's champ. Like I think, yeah, the people's champ is not always necessarily the strongest, is not always the most talented or anything like that, but it's the one that we can always like get behind. And to your point, it's what made Steve choose him, regardless of the jokes about taking the serum. Like he is a good man. Going all the way back to Captain America: First Avenger, where before Steve even gets the serum, Erskine tells him like, I chose you and wanted you to be it because I guess you're the strongest or the biggest soldier. And like there was obviously we know what Steve looked like before the super soldier serum. Dude was a twig. There was way more more prominent candidates you probably could have chose from just off of sheer strength and look and build and all that. But it was about the heart of Sam and the heart of Steve, what made them who they were. And you saw that with how he won. He wasn't going to win as a fist fight, and I'll get to that point too. But he wasn't going to win in a fist fight with him, even with a super soldier serum, which is the point I'm going to get to a little bit later.
Hmm.
They're not going to beat a Hulk. He's just not going to beat a Hulk. So, it really showed truly at the end of the day. And we even saw that in both First Avenger and in Winter Soldier with Steve, where the turning tide came from him speaking his words, not punching and using his fists. We saw in Winter Soldier how he got shields, the ones who were turned from into Hydra to literally fight back. And same thing in First Avenger, he rallied the rest of, the soldiers and saved them from, Red Skull, which then ignited the US be like, okay, yeah, Steve is a super soldier. We need to roll with this guy. And everyone got behind him. So the biggest moments of Captain America doesn't come from, the punching and the action. It comes from his virtue, and how, he stands up for what's right at the end of the day, even if it's, let's say, illegal, with like civil war, he always stands up for what is right. So, I I love Sam as Cap. I think he's deserving of the mantle. I think this movie solidified it even more. And yeah, just for those who are saying it's not a good movie, I just think we live in a world now where something has to be in game level. That's just unrealistic for, every movie to be a culmination project. So yeah, I thought it was very entertaining. Like Sal said, not forced comedy, like I think, Marvel can sometimes get trapped into in the MCU, but everything felt authentic, serious tone at times, great themes, great action, great 2 hour film. Didn't feel like it dragged on. It was perfect length. Do I wish there was a little bit more things? Yeah, I thought there could have been a little bit more, when it comes to like maybe the leader or even seeing more Red Hulk. But at the end of the day, the movie still felt like it got to where it's supposed to, and we were shown everything we needed to see for that film. So, I like I said, really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend people to go see it. I wouldn't mind seeing it again.
Yeah, man, I definitely would want to see it again too. But I think one of the biggest issues that people had with the film was the they felt like it was a very messy narrative. There were so many different things that they had to keep up with. If you didn't watch The Incredible Hulk from 2008, a lot of the plot points may not have hit as well. Like, who is this person? Even who Ross is with the actor change can confuse a casual fan.
Mm-hmm.
But what I really liked about this film is they made Ross not the bad guy. He was almost like another good guy, kind of like how Tony Stark was in Civil
Like
War,
Stark, yeah.
where he's not really the antagonist, but he's definitely that friction for the protagonist. Yeah, but he was definitely
That's okay.
portrayed in a different way because if you look at Ross in Incredible Hulk, he's the bad guy. Abomination is the person that or the thing that Hulk ends up fighting, but Ross is the main bad guy. Even in Infinity War and in Endgame, Ross is chasing, Captain America and Black Widow and Sam, while they're
Mm-hmm.
out,
Yeah.
hiding out in the world because of Sokovia Accords. And I think that's where the movie works really, really well is when you have Harrison Ford and Anthony Mackie together. There were just things like certain characters that I feel like didn't really need to be there, that were unnecessary. And I think a lot of people complained about the reshoots. There were certain scenes that felt like they were there or awkwardly placed there, or it felt like it wasn't a smooth continuation in between different scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think this movie is good. It is, I think, the Winter Soldier light movie. Like even the way the plot moves is very similar. Like you have the scene
Mm-hmm.
with like Sidewinder like ambushing Sam Wilson. That's basically what happened to Samuel L. Jackson. Towards the end of the movie is basically Sam and Steve Rogers, except it's just Sam and Joaquin.
Yeah.
So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of parallels though, even with the narrative and how they push the story forward. That I part of me feels like it's almost predictable because we've seen that movie before. And then the other complaint I saw was the marketing, where I think teasing Red Hulk would have been cool, but if you saw the trailer, you know who Red Hulk was. And obviously, most fans
Mm-hmm.
jumping into this movie knew what was coming, but I think that also probably made it not as good for a lot of casuals where, they like to go into the movie spoiler free, but they saw the trailer and the trailer gives away the whole movie. And it's kind of been this way since I think Batman versus Superman is that first film I really think about that really gave away the ending.
Giveaway.
Like
Yeah.
the endings are just given away, and I think a lot of it's because of the marketing, and I wonder it's because maybe they didn't think Anthony Mackie was a strong enough lead to sell, tickets. Harrison Ford is, but if Harrison Ford is just some old head in a Marvel movie, I think a lot of people, they're not really that excited to see him. But to hear that he's Red Hulk, I think put some butts in seats, uh,
Yeah.
and I think that probably hurt the movie too. And I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of things that go beyond just people liking films and stuff that probably went into play. But based off of the current reports, I mean, we're talking about numbers close to Winter Soldier and definitely exceeding First Avenger during this opening weekend. So it's not a complete loss for Disney and Marvel, but
Mhm.
it does make you wonder, is the fan base just turning on it? Is there things going on, maybe political stuff, or people don't want to watch a political movie because it's a political climate right now, and they want to watch a movie that they can escape from, all of this. And this movie is almost like a World War III type of movie, so it's like anyone who's on edge about that may not want to see this during their leisure time as well. But why do you think this movie didn't do as well as, let's say, Civil War did,
I
or
mean,
the Avengers movie?
I think I'm biased, but I loved that a lot of the locations of the film took place in the DMV. Obviously, just having been someone that grew up there, seeing a Marvel movie just roll through Baltimore, DC, Virginia, going all the way to Norfolk. So Virginia Beach, even like it covers a huge span
Yeah.
of
A good
areas
span.
that are nostalgic for me. But I also wonder if that kind of focus of such a there was probably a part of it that's trying to give you like subliminal messaging on like patriotism and like the
Yeah,
true meaning of it being like, hey, although we have differences, we come together as Americans. And some people might feel like that message is corny and like feel like, at a time when our country is probably like more divided than ever, like, all right, here come y'all just trying to force some propaganda, but also tiptoeing the line. I thought the film did a good job of that, of not saying whether it thought something was good or bad. It kind of just let it exist.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, people want something to cater to their side, no matter what side that is. And the film didn't really do that. It kind of just like stayed in that gray area in between. And even the political aspects of the film, I felt like um, they had a lot of social commentary packed into it, but it was
Hmm.
also like played up for dramatics, of course, and like even as y'all were discussing politics and just the MCU, it's interesting to see. I like that they're like amping up that like it could be corrupt politicians, it could be all types of like crazy stuff going on behind the scenes. Whereas in like earlier MCU films, those people were like involved, but even just like Ross as a general, like spazzing out at a press conference. I thought that that was like a great little just like hidden gem that they added in there to paint the picture of like these are the people who's an elected official, and like despite that past, like he was still elected president. And that's obviously like commentary in a post-election year of a president who was almost impeached twice, like coming in. And I think that they were trying to play up on that, and certain that's just straightforward. There are a lot of people who will just feel like it's forced because of the timing.
yeah. I mean, Ross becomes president because of what happened in Secret Invasion, right? I think they felt like
Hmm.
the president that was the sitting president during that time couldn't control what was happening with the Skrulls. Uh, or at least as a fan who's seen all these shows, that's kind of what we connect the dots and put together. And I think that's another complaint that people have right now in the MCU is like they feel like there's all these shows that are out there, but there's not really that much of a connectiveness. But then this movie is one of those movies that actually connects a lot of the things together. It's an Incredible Hulk sequel that never happened, and we get that. And the Hulk's not in it, but we get Ross, and I mean Betty's in it, and Betty's a big part of Hulk's life. So maybe we would have benefited from maybe like a Mark Ruffalo cameo or post credit. I think would have been really cool there. But I think that there's just so many things going on. I think even
Yeah,
me as like I'm pretty enthusiastic fan. I don't know what direction we're really going. Whereas I think before it was easy to know, all right, well, we're going to this Avengers level event. it's just this Avengers level event. Is it coming around the horizon or not? And to hear them change up all these plans because of what the audience has reacted to me is a little concerning because I worry that it's like they're no longer about their vision of telling the stories that are in the comics, and now they're just trying to please the audience and give them what they want at the expense of films that are actually good. And who knows? I'm just afraid Sam Wilson might not get another movie now because it didn't do as well as maybe Civil War or Avengers or a Spider-Man film has done.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
afraid. Go ahead, Quay.
no, no. I was saying, yeah, that's kind of like that's been my biggest concern of this entire phase. I know COVID kind of ruined things. I know COVID, pushed things back, kind of changed the release order and how they wanted to go about Univision, and then the whole court case. I don't know my personal feelings on that one, but the whole court case with their main villain, main threat of this saga, and because of
Mhm.
public perception, instead of going with the actual facts of what happened and like how personally I think most people say it, if you look at the thing, he was more the victim, and for it sucks that a company doesn't say, even if you don't want to hire him back. It was kind of crazy for a company to say we're scrapping this character as well because the reception of this character, even though the reception of the character was widely misconceived, like it's insane. I mean, the whole Quantumania, he loses to a bunch of ants. Like, this is our big threat. And it's like, okay, but you're missing complete context of the whole thing. Like, these are ants that ended up advancing like thousands of years. That's first off. Second off, we already know if ants were literally our exact human size, like there is nothing we're doing. Like there's absolutely nothing short of us having like a force multiplier or a force amplifier. Like there is absolutely no way. So I just think it's kind of crazy to say like, oh, but he's king, and it's like, but still, does not matter. He got swarmed and still survived. That's the other thing too. Got swarmed by all those ants, still survived, and almost won. Still, if it wasn't for Hope coming back in to go ahead and save Scott, because otherwise Scott was going to die right then and there, and he would have got out, and we don't know what would have after that.
And I loved
But
Ant-Man Quantumania. I think they're similar tier movies.
I think they're very similar tier movies as well.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just it it blows my mind that this whole saga has been reactive and not proactive like the multiverse saga. To Sal's point, I feel like they were consistent with a vision at that point, even if the movie wasn't necessarily like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. They still released movies because it was like integral to the story. It was integral to either introducing a character or leading up to the final events of that saga. And so that's I think this saga being so reactive to fan reception, and maybe it's because they're tied to Disney now, and before Feige was able to just kind of control everything, who knows if it was still just Marvel Studios and Feige was running everything, they weren't under Disney, under the Disney umbrella. Who knows? Maybe we don't get Jonathan Majors King fired. He probably still sticks around. Maybe they just recast him and they still go with that same storyline. I think that was the best course of action. You had all these different movies leading up to him being a big bad. Even if you wanted to introduce Doctor Doom at like last minute as he kind of snuck up. I feel like that could have still worked out if, you know, you decided to say, okay, he's going to be a surprise thing at the end. Or you could even have had
Yeah.
Doom be a Kang variant. It could have been a Kang variant version of Doom and would have shown like, oh, okay, this is interesting now. Because a lot of people don't know that his origins, Kang, yes, he's a descendant of Reed, but he's also a descendant of Doom as well. Somewhere their bloodlines connected and he's a descendant of both of them. So it would have been pretty cool if they would have said, hey, yeah, we're going to go ahead and go that route. But it's I'm worried about it too. As a fan, I'm going to enjoy the final process, but I am worried about how they pivoted and really just are changing things on the fly. Essentially, this movie was supposed to be a Hulk film, and I know they do have issues with Universal Studios trying to make a film since they still own the rights, but you know, they were setting up so much with had like World War Hulk stuff, and even reading, it's like that's what they wanted to do. They were setting up all these different Hulk plot lines, and then they had to change things. And like I said, the final product's still good, but it makes me wonder if we did leave a better movie on the table because we had to dumb things down maybe for the casual fan, or I don't know. Like I know people complain that there's no connectivity, but again, this movie was something that connected to previous films and previous projects, and people still complain about having to do quote unquote homework. So
Yeah.
I just don't know sometimes. I just don't know.
I
And
think
everyone's
for
going to
me, the
complain
biggest
too,
listen.
because the casual fan is always going to, be lost about like some of the details and stuff. And it does make me wonder, like, is the multiverse saga dead? Because King isn't going to be the villain anymore, and we're not really doing any seems like the studio is moving away from the multiverse films. But the facts are the highest grossing post Endgame movies are all multiverse films. No Way Home is one of the most successful movies of all time. Doctor Strange was, I think, the second biggest film, or not second, it's the third biggest film, and Deadpool and Wolverine is the second biggest film post Endgame, and those
Hmm.
are three multiverse movies. So I think to say it's all multiverse, that's the issue. I don't think there's actually real data to support that. And then in between, you have good movies like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, you have Black Panther, that are,
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi, that are regarded as good movies regardless of, multiverse or whatever, and they don't really have any multiverse stuff too. So I think a lot of it's just the narrative. The narrative is kind of like Marvel sucks post Endgame, even though it's really been pretty successful, moving forward. I think the Marvels was the only one that really didn't do well, and it was actually a good movie. So it just makes me think that maybe just the Marvel fan has kind of turned on the brand because maybe they're not seeing their characters or their version of the characters on screen anymore,
Yeah, I think the
and
reactivity.
Hmm.
they're reacting to that. Yeah.
I think the reactivity has really kind of scattered certain plot lines, and because it's
Yeah.
all when you're waiting to see how something's going to perform, and if it's like a sure thing, then certain things get scrapped and certain things are getting retconned and getting changed. And I think that, the hardcore fan is going to not like that. And it also feels like, well, man, these characters that I'm invested to, like, if they don't make money, it could just be gone. And
Hmm.
that aspect sucks. And for me, I guess like two things that I would have really liked to have seen in the film that would have probably put it more over the top for me into like just moving up another tier as an MCU film would have definitely been a Bruce Banner cameo. Doesn't even have to be a Hulk cameo. Just
Hmm.
like if he appeared in She-Hulk, to me, it's almost like why couldn't we get him in here? And if it is for contractual reasons, why can't we cut a deal like Sony does with their Spider-Man films, etc.? So we know that there has been negotiations in the past. And if we've
Hmm.
had Hulk appear in a Disney Plus series, why can't we have him appear in something else? And it was a Hulk adjacent thing, very similar to what Red Hulk would be, anyways, which is a Hulk
Hmm.
adjacent character and thing. And I loved Bucky's emotional cameo, but I would have loved to seen an action one. And I think that there was something there to be played up with that would reinforce that Sam is the new Captain America if Bucky shows up with him in some sort of action scene, like backing him up or supporting him when he feels like he's not enough, and then kind of like putting the battery in his back, just saying like, no, like I was there for Steve and I'll be there for you. And I think there was an opening in the film as it's already written once Joaquin goes down. And Bucky shows up at the hospital scene. It's almost like they were building up to it, and then they just didn't give it to him.
Hmm.
Um, that part to me is, as an action fan, is what I missed. Of just
Yeah.
like, and maybe they're saving all
It's
Yeah.
the
like Homecoming. Like Spider-Man Homecoming does the same thing, I think. They played up the
Yeah, give
Tony
us
Stark at
Tony.
the end, and they didn't.
and maybe they're saving it for Thunderbolts, etc. That's probably like the larger scheme of the. They're like, hey, we're gonna show you Bucky's around and what he's up to, but you got to watch the next film to see him in action, type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
And
think because he's going as a congressman, I think he's probably been very low key and not doing anything action related. And then we see like the events of Thunderbolts probably push him into really taking action now because it's he's actually seeing Val do whatever she's doing in Thunderbolts. So
I have a question for all of us. Pivoting, say Sam Wilson takes Ross's advice and he does assemble a new Avengers team. Who do you think or want to see on that team?
I think some of the OGs return. I mean, I definitely think you
Bruce
get Hulk
Banner,
back. You got Bruce back. You're gonna have Strange
Carol.
obviously on that team as well. Carol. I think anyone we saw at the end of Shang-Chi talking will be a part of the Avengers. So yeah, Hulk,
Shang-Chi,
Carol,
Ant-Man,
Shang-Chi, Ant-Man,
Thor.
um,
Do you think Shuri joins?
Thor. Even though I think Shuri would join under special circumstances. I don't think she'll be like a member, but she'll tag along.
Yeah,
Um,
she'll help out. Maybe help out with some tech. But I don't know. I just feel
yeah,
like they haven't used Black Panther as like an Avengers character,
no,
really.
because yeah, he's like
He was on
assisted
Cap's
or been
side.
around that. Yeah, but Moon Knight, if they ever figure out what's going on with that, I feel like What
Mm,
If was kind of hinting at
mm,
potentially Moon Knight being a part of the team, and same thing playing Rivals, where he's like, "Heard you were
yeah.
Avenger once." Yeah, not that long, and I've lost my ID card.
Yeah.
So I think like eventually they're going to
100%.
have Moon Knight thrown in there too. Um, but yeah, Doctor Strange, Hulk, Carol, Spidey, um, and then maybe they're gonna have them as young Avengers. But I was gonna say you bring in some of the young Avengers that they already has shown, like Kate Bishop, Hawkeye. Maybe Elena
Kamala Khan.
joins the team.
Yeah, and then there's
Kamala
also
Khan
Wolverine and Deadpool and all the Fox characters that will probably show up
that now
after.
exists.
Yeah,
Yeah,
afterwards too. So yeah, I think the MCU's future is cloudy, but I mean, there's lots to be excited for. I mean, even this year we got three movies. Last year we only had one movie, which was a really successful movie and one that everyone was really waiting for. But I think one of my biggest complaints about that movie was it didn't really push anything forward in terms of the narrative of like the current MCU,
the
and it was
MCU.
kind of just closing and tying up any loose ends on thoughts in that universe. So it'll be nice to see how they merge in.